speaker today is Matt Joyner. Matt is an attorney from Charlotte, North Carolina, and an officer of the Major Egbert A. Ross Camp, number 1423 SCV in Charlotte. His great-great-grandfather was Private Hugh Clinton Sprinkle from Yadkin County, North Carolina, who fought in the Valley in Company C of the 30th North Carolina Infantry in Cox's Brigade. He was captured at 3rd Winchester on September 19, 1864, and spent the remainder of the war as a POW at Point Lookout, Maryland. Incidentally, Matt is also a fourth cousin 4 times removed to General Stonewall Jackson. At this time, I would like to welcome Matt to the podium.
Can y'all hear me? Good. I'm so relieved that we have this audio system, because I thought, if I'm going to be yelling over trucks on 81, this is not going to work. But y'all are well prepared, and I thank you. And thank you, Commander Dorsey, and thank you, compatriots of the Stonewall Brigade Camp. What an awesome undertaking you have here, and we have so much respect and love for you and what you're doing here. And so greetings from the Major Egbert A. Ross Camp down in Charlotte. And there's also one person I particularly want to call out before we get too far into this, and that is our friend Larry Walker, who's up there holding the flag, pretty conspicuous man. But y'all need to understand that these 2 monuments really are the result of Larry spearheading this effort. Larry is a tireless advocate for Confederate issues down in Charlotte, and let's see, he has spearheaded, how many now, Larry? About 25, 30 different Confederate monuments?
25.
Like, who's counting, right? But 25. And so these are the 2 latest ones, and I'm just honored to be his friend and to be here as part of unveiling these monuments and dedicating them, particularly because of my own personal connection, my great-great-grandfather. And as you say, I'm wearing my Point Lookout Descendants of POWs medal, and if any of y'all are descendants of Point Lookout POWs, I commend that group to you. You can go online, find them. There's a great group. They're doing great work out there at Point Lookout at their Confederate Memorial Park. And they also sort of cutting edge in this whole issue of private Confederate parks. So reach out and send them a little bit of money and get a brick there for your ancestor. But yeah, Hugh Sprinkle was from Yadkin County. And he wasn't any fresh-faced little kid who was all enthusiastic about going to war. He was a conscript. He was 32 years old. He was married. He had 2 kids. And he was not really happy about going to war. He had better things to do at home on the farm, he thought. But he went. And he was a replacement in the 30th Regiment, North Carolina. They had suffered devastating losses at Kelly's Ford. And so he came there in November of '63 and was with them through 1st Winchester. So, which meant that when General Lee sent Jubal Early with his troops up to help with preserving Lynchburg in May of '64, I should say in June of '64, he went with them up into Lynchburg. They prevailed in protecting Lynchburg, and Early was given specific directions to go north, just like Jackson had done in '62, and the main goal there was to threaten Washington so Grant would send troops away from Petersburg and Richmond to protect Washington and take some of the pressure off of Lee down there in the eastern part of the state. And so Early did that. He came up and he came down the valley and got as far as Monocacy, Maryland, at Frederick, the Monocacy River, where he encountered General Lew Wallace, who later would go on and write the book Ben-Hur, and got slowed down there, but they achieved their goal of having troops taken out of Virginia and sent up to D.C. So they did achieve that. They got as far as Fort Stevens, the north side of D.C. Somebody got a shot off at Lincoln, and the people there at Fort Stevens missed Lincoln, got somebody next to him, though. by that time, it was July 10th, they were just so worn out and heat exhaustion, and they didn't have the resources. And so they turned around and came back, having accomplished the mission at least of getting the reinforcements to come up there to Washington. So they get back down the valley, and they come through Snickers Gap, have an engagement at Snickers Gap, and then they come on down, and they turn around and fight the people pursuing them at Kernstown. And then they sort of settle on down around Winchester. And around this time, Lincoln Grant appoints Sheridan to come into the valley and to wipe it out once for all, wipe out the Confederate resistance there. And so sure enough, they have their big battle there in Winchester on September 19th, 1864. And number killed. I mean, the Army of the Valley at that time had 20,000 men. And in the Battle of Winchester, they lost 25% of their forces. It was such a big, terrible battle. And what's interesting, when you look at the order of battle for the Army of the Valley, they had no fewer than 94 regiments of infantry, and they're almost split almost evenly. A third Virginia, a third North Carolina and South Carolina troops, and a third Georgia and miscellaneous, Alabama, Mississippi regiments. And so when you think about that campaign and who was going up and down this valley, marching up and down with their muskets, you had almost equal chance of one of those either being a Virginian, a Carolinian, or a Georgian. And so heavy participation by North Carolina and South Carolina. So Winchester happened. They move on back to Fisher's Hill and got attacked there and lost 10% of their force there, taken prisoner. So as this is going on, the forces are getting degraded, but the men are hanging in there. And so they finally wind up at Cedar Creek, October 19th, which was originally a great daring attack by General Early, which came close to succeeding, almost said seceding, but for pushback later in the day by the Federals. And, General Early in his memoir is, let's say, not at all hesitant to say who he blames for that loss. We will not mention them, but he was very candid about what happened to his chances of success there that day. But point being, plenty of activity in the valley, both 1862 with Jackson, but then in the 64 with Early trying to recreate what Jackson had done in 62 in terms of threat on Washington. But there are boys from all over the South, not just Virginia. And so enough of the history lesson. We came here to dedicate these monuments. And so, here we are in a private park with privately commissioned monuments with private citizens. How did we get here? And I just want to say that in 2016, when Antifa attacked the Confederate cemetery in Elmwood Cemetery in Charlotte, I wasn't a member of the SCV, but I saw that and said, okay, this is wrong. Somebody needs to do something about this. That's how I got involved in the SCV after their attack on the Confederate section. And then the following year, the first statue came down in Durham, North Carolina, and they actually arrested the 6 people that were in charge of it. And lo and behold, they were all members of something called the Workers' World Party. It's a hardcore communist party. They're not only Stalinists, they're in favor of North Korea. They're so hardcore communist. And that just seems so odd to me. Like, why on earth are these communists worried about Confederate monuments? What's up with that? Well, that led me down the study of cultural Marxism and really understanding that what we're living in, what we've been through the last 10 years is really a reverberation of stuff that happened in Germany over a century ago. At the end of World War I in Germany, a bunch of communists tried to pull off a communist revolution like it had already happened in Russia. And they were unsuccessful because there were citizens there who were still devoted to their God and to their country and to their tradition and to their heritage, and they weren't having it. And so they put the communist revolution down, which made the communists realize, hey, in order to have a successful communist revolution, we first have to do away with the underpinning in existing traditional society. We've got to gut the institution. They call it the long march through the institutions. We got to go through the schools. We got to go through the church. We got to go through civic organizations, do everything we can to infiltrate and destroy them from within, discredit them, so that we thoroughly have done that, the people will be ready for do whatever we want to tell them to do, and they won't have anything else to hang on to, right? Well, these unsuccessful communists came to the U.S. They were professors. They got into American universities, and they started preaching that in our universities. They grew themselves up a crop of revolutionaries in the 60s, the New Left. One of those German fellows was the mentor of Angela Davis, who was the communist candidate for U.S. president. So they grew within the American institutions this notion of achieving communist revolution by first destroying the infrastructure. And so look at how successful they have been. Look what they've done to our schools and our universities. Look what they've done to our churches. How many of y'all are ex-Methodists like me? Okay. So they've prevailed within a lot of the mainline churches, and they're hard at it. The Boy Scouts. How many of y'all Boy Scouts and all the crazy stuff going on within Boy Scouts? This is all part of a century-long effort to destroy from within any institution that promotes traditional values, right? And they're doing a pretty good job of it. But here we are today. The culmination, you can almost say, of this whole movement, we just had a presidential election where the candidate from one of the major parties, you remember her great line that she kept repeating over and over and over again, was that she could imagine what could be unburdened by what has been, right? That's exactly the program. Her future that she sees for this country has to be unburdened by the past. We have to do away with the past in order for her program to get implemented. It's the exact program, okay? So fortunately, we're here today, and that didn't happen. But that's how far it's gone, and that's what she's about. So we're here to say no. We're here to say no to that agenda, no to those people that want to destroy our traditions. And as private citizens, we're coming together to create places like this, monuments like this, because we're the ones who know that our past is not a burden that we are to be unburdened by. It's the foundation that lifts us up and keeps us going and tells us who we are and who we should be. It's the exact opposite. But we are those people who are saying, no, we're not buying into this, we're not having it, and we will continue to celebrate our heritage. We will remember our dead, we will remember our traditions, and we will carry on in the face of whatever else you got in store, but that's who we are, and that's what we're doing. So, in closing, I want to leave you with a few stanzas from a poem. Well, which I have. There we go. I knew I had it. This is from the November 1923 version or edition of the Confederate Veteran. It's a poem by Mr. Arthur Patroclus from Chicago, Illinois. And it's called Shenandoah. It says, Shenandoah, is it thunder of cannon we hear in the name, musketry crashing and rifles aflame, where bold Massanutten towers over the flood that once to Potomac ran crimson with blood of heroes? Ah, does the great valley remember? Aye, hark to the shrill blast of gloomy December. With the ears of the soul, if you listen full well, you may hear in the storm wind the high ringing yell, with which, like a torrent on rushing a foam, the gray gallant legions, the gaunt gallant legions, the loved gallant legions charged the foe home. Does the valley remember? Aye, hark as the blast of boisterous march through the forest sweeps past, in the groan of the boughs, in the deep distant roar, as of breakers that beat on a desolate shore. You may hear the deep rumble of guns and the beat, deep cadenced and steady, of swift marching feet, as of gray ghostly legions that march evermore on thy echoing highways, O loved Shenandoah. Does the valley remember? Hear ye not the low sigh that the still forest wakes as the breeze passes by, and the drops shaken down seem they not like soft tears, sun-jeweled and precious. Through all the long years, the valley remembers that sigh but caressed her children, her heroes, asleep on her breast, and her tears fall o'er the graves of the slain. Her sorrow time heals not, though softened its pain. So yes, we're here to say the valley remembers, and we remember too. And we are here to dedicate these monuments as we remember these fallen compatriots from North Carolina and South Carolina, far away from home, came up here to fight for Southern independence, and we remember as well as with the valley remembering. And thank you very much.
At this time, we will have our Black Rose tribute with Miss Tiffany Lloyd, who is with the Mariana Jackson Order Confederate Rose, joined by Connie Dorsey.
Shoulder, arm. Bent, arm.
Hello, everyone. From the Thomas W. Anderson UDC, our proud members of the Mariana Jackson chapter with the Stonewall Brigade. It's not going to cooperate today. Just take it off. We would like to thank you all for coming out. I am a member of the Virginia OCR, which is the Order of the Confederate Rose. I am also the keeper of the right for the Black Rose Society in Virginia and president of the Mariana Jackson chapter OCR here with the Stonewall Brigade. We are going to honor these two monuments today with roses, just for lots of words. Just for remembrance of them and all the other soldiers out there that has passed on. I'm also going to read this poem, The Southern Dead Are Sleeping. It's written by the late Sergeant Benjamin Gormley of Battlefields of Broken Hearts. The Southern dead are sleeping in 1,000 southern glens. The moss and willows beckon on a breath of southern winds. Through the blood-stained cross of St. Andrews is tattered now and furled. They bore it high on every field and over every ocean of the world. It wasn't through their failing. The gleaming turned to rust, and the dreaming of a nation is enshrined within their dust. Some would have their deeds forgot, their monuments swept away, but while southern blood flows in our veins, those calves shall never see the day. Teach your children of their story, of battles lost and won. We must keep memory light a burning till southern rivers cease to run. The southern dead are sleeping in 1,000 southern glens. The moss and willows beckon on a breath of southern winds.